Hello, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back, everyone. So, in this week's episode, I am going to be re airing a past episode where I had an amazing conversation with my guest, Shawn Hudson. So, we talked about all the things fatherhood and navigating challenges, being a special needs father, and just the joy and just the quality of life that he brings to his children, and just what an amazing person he is. One of the reasons I'm sharing this episode once again is Shawn has tragically passed away, and I wanted to reshare this episode in his memory. So if you haven't listened to this episode, I am re airing this so you can just hear the amazing person who was a good friend of mine. He was an amazing person and he was like family to me. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And one takeaway that I can do is that please make sure that if your family member, yourself, if you feel that you're off, if you don't feel well, make sure you get seen, checked out, because it could be life or death. So you guys enjoy the episode, and I will talk to you guys next week. Hey, so welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. So in today's episode, got a special guest today on the Rare Mama podcast. So have Shawn Hudson today as my guest. So Shawn is a single dad of two kids, son who's 20, daughter who's 16. He currently has two jobs. So he's in management at UPS and a licensed massage therapist. So if you need a massage, call Shawn. His 20-year-old son is on the autism spectrum with an official diagnosis of monosomal chromosomal deletion 1p36, which is really rare, just like my daughters. So, Shawn, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So let's get started. Since I'm doing this segment about dads, which I think is a very important topic as far as parenting and parenthood from the father's perspective. So, because I don't think it gets enough recognition and it doesn't get recognized a lot. We hear about moms all the time, but dads is kind of like, it's there, but it's not. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a parent, and how have you navigated them?
Oh boy, the list. I think the biggest thing as a parent is, especially with a special needs parent, is there's obviously two different personalities between me and the mom, and we're both very active, involved, and the kids, especially my son, will be one way with mom and be a little bit different with me. So obviously that's a challenge for both of us. So to both of us to communicate, be on the same page. But when you took a communication as co-parenting, and then obviously we didn't necessarily have the best communication during our relationship, it's obviously a struggle. So to communicate and get on the same page is by far the hardest thing. And what the kids will experience at her house compared to what the kids experience at my house, and to try to make that gel is probably the toughest thing. Because my son is by far my best friend, so I click with him really well. He likes consistency, he likes good communication, patience. He even enjoys being held accountable. So all those things he gets from my house, but there's a lot of inconsistencies, at mom's house. So especially with kids with special needs, where they like that routine, that pattern. If there's a home, whether it's mom or dad's, that doesn't have that consistency, that's going to be a struggle. And I know in my case, I've been told, it's pretty rare to have a dad very heavily involved. I've been involved all 20 years, very involved. I mean, I see my kids, 3 to 5 times a week. not just once a week, not just every other weekend, very frequently. So heavily involved in all the decision makings. I go to all the doctor's appointments. So I'm just don't just say it's all mom's or the custodial parents' responsibility. I want to be involved in every step of the process.
I think that's really powerful because I don't think we see a lot of dads who have special needs kids really be per se involved. I wish my situation would be a little bit different, but that situation is what it is, and it's hard to co-parent with somebody that just doesn't see things the way you do and can't get on the same page with you. So I think it's really important because dads are very important when it comes to having children, with different types of needs, different abilities, things like that. So in retrospect to that, how do you balance these parental responsibilities, with work, personal life? How do you balance that considering, the situation that you have?
Sure. I mean, it can be difficult. What's I guess is helpful is, she has a job where she's a teacher, whatever you want to call it, your typical 8 a.m. till 3 p.m., weekends off, summers off, things of that nature. But I would say probably one of the biggest things that's helped because, as you stated, I have my two jobs, and my job at UPS is Monday through Friday, but I work like 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. So I work a sunrise shift. So I'm usually in bed by like 7. I have afternoons free, which can be helpful on some days if the kids have half a day or they don't have school, or especially during the summer, I get more time with them during things of that nature. And then I usually have weekends off. But what's been really helpful is, resources provided by the state. We have respite workers that help out. For example, there's a lady that lives near the kid's mom who, the days I can't get the kids off the bus, she can. And that money is paid to her from, the state of Illinois, that we, do time cards and things of that nature. So, those resources are available out there to, those parents. And so it's been really helpful to be able to have them. And I don't use a respite worker as much here at my house just because I can handle majority of the things. But I know mom uses the respite worker here and there. I know she's used a respite worker to take somebody on vacation, things of that nature when the kids were on vacation when they were younger. Not so much now, but when they were littler. Um, so I really takes for special needs parents, especially single, it really takes an army. I have really nice support through friends and family that if I needed something, I can call somebody up, say, can you help me out with this or that? And they'll do their best. But it's hard because they have their own families and they have their own jobs. So you don't want to feel like you're always having to rely on somebody, but to do what we need to do to take care of our kids, and especially somebody with special needs, it really takes a lot. My son's 20, but I don't really leave him home alone. He's very high functioning. I trust him, but he has his moments where, he can be a little stinker. So you can't really necessarily rely on, okay, a 20-year-old to stay home alone. Having somebody at least be there with them is a huge help. And I don't like to always rely on my daughter. She's 16, great kid, but too young to be put in a position where she's playing second mom or a third parent. So try not to rely on her too much to do something like that. So it's difficult at times, but you find a way.
That we do. Like the old saying goes, it takes a village pretty much
Absolutely.
to, raise kids of this nature. Oh yeah. It really does. So I know I've used respite care in the past. I know I don't use it currently right now because my work schedule is pretty flexible. And since I only work 3 days a week, and then dad has, the girls during that time. So maybe in the future, I probably will need it. So,
Even for an
so,
hour here or there, just to go to the
okay,
grocery store. I mean, we as strong
this is
parents,
true.
just feel like we can handle it, and we can, and we have, and we know we can. But sometimes we have to make sure that, we give ourselves those breaks, even to sneak away from the grocery store uninterrupted for an hour, hour and a half could just be a world of a difference for you, and then having to take the kids in and out of the car and do all the other stuff. So, we have to not be afraid to ask for help or take those little breaks when they're afforded to us.
Oh, trust me, there are times where I just hide in the bathroom for 10 minutes while my kids look for me. So, because I need to decompress
Absolutely.
sometimes. So, okay, what do you think are some misconceptions about fatherhood that you want to address or that you would like people to be aware of?
Oh, I know there's obviously the stereotypes and, um, that are out there, whether, just things generally go towards a mom's way. And I understand why. I'm not going to sit here and dispel history and, all the, amazing single mom. My mom was a single mom. My dad was not around. I'm not even going to sit here and begin to say whatever the reasons. It is what it is. It just not having my dad around ultimately made me to want to be a really involved father. So I understand of the things that have been out there, and so I'm not going to dispel and say one's better than the others. My sister's a single mom. My nieces and nephews' dad wasn't around either. So I think that the biggest thing is that, it's not a stereotype, it's case by case situation. Yes, there's times where some fathers are not around and some really awesome, badass mamas, 100%. You know, s- you and my sister and my mom, to just name a few, but there's dads out there that really want to be heavily involved. And I love my quality time with my kids, and the things I get to do with them now is they're so much fun. Taking them on adventures and to concerts and to the beach and other things. I'm enjoying them having being young adults. Enjoy those experiences. Um, so that's the biggest thing is that there are dads out there who do want to be heavily involved and be in the process. Um, so I think just everybody just look at it at a case by case basis. Um, you know, so for the moms that are busting their butt, just realize there are dads out there doing it just to the same as well. So I think that's just, with anything is, sometimes we're quick to judge based on our own experiences. So, a single mom might be quick to judge because she's had a hard time. I get it. But there's others out there that are going through the same, whether it's males or females. And ultimately, I think we all just need each other to lean on each other and help each other best we can, for support. That's why this podcast is awesome to be able to open up and talk. And, it's not us versus you. It's not male versus female. This is us all trying to do our best to get through this madness, and to take care of our kids the best way we can.
Yeah, because there's a lot of it on social media where you see the whole man versus woman. And I think I came across a TikTok today about, the woman choosing the man or the bear. I think it's all ridiculous, to be honest. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there because, there are a lot of good fathers out there like yourself that really genuinely want to be involved and want to change the way the stereotype really is as far as how dads are perceived, not only just in life in general, but also on social media. Because social media is like a big part of just everything nowadays,
100%.
because you and I both know, like, Back then, we didn't have social media growing up, which made things a little bit easier, to be quite honest. So,
Yeah, and
all right.
I think
So,
with some of these single parent
um,
groups that are out
yeah,
there,
go ahead.
I know you've seen them, I see
Mhm.
them, and, memes and people posting memes and just for effects or to say their feelings, and there's a lot of, about, men in relationships or men as fathers. My solution to all that, if it doesn't affect me, I don't respond. All I know is I know who I am. I know how I
Right.
am. I'm not going to sit there and try to um, convince people and their memes and social media posts about who's right or wrong. People can post whatever they want. And if I'm not bothered by it, it doesn't affect me and how I live my life, I let it go.
Same, same. Yeah, because we see because it's such a large influence, and you see every time you open up, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, it's like all over. That's why I just have to like take a social media break every once in a while. So that's going to lead into my next question. So, as being a parent, how has that influenced your approach when it comes to dating and relationships?
Well, it's progressed a lot over the years. So I've been divorced for 12 years now, and I guess I've had two mindsets. One, from a general standpoint, I've never hesitated to include quality people in my kids' lives, um, as far as, publicly or having them around. If it's, somebody that's good, like going to the beach or hanging out in group setting or things of that nature. So I don't necessarily consider that a dating thing, probably more of a friendship thing. But like I said, I have no problem including quality people, and whether it's male, female, um, kids, no kids, in my kids' lives, because I think kids need to see the more positive, supportive adults, the better. So that's one. Two is, being divorced. I've had a few different relationships over the years, and they're difficult. And not to try to break down every single one, and whether it's blending somebody else with kids. I lived with somebody temporarily, which can be hard because there was her kids and my kids. So it's very difficult. And there's no right formula for that. I'm definitely more cautious now. Um, just one, I guess, to protect my own feelings and self, but that in my back of my head, and my kids have never said anything about me going out on dates or anything of that. My kids are very laid back and chill. And they're very open, and I know they just want to see me happy. Um, but I guess my own anxiety per se is I just don't want them to see me fail at relationships. And so obviously I've had to divorce. So I'm trying to make sure I keep that nurtured in a positive way. And just as far as other relationships, it's not a priority for my kids to meet somebody. Honestly, it's not necessarily a huge priority for me right now, because I'm trying to just focus on, supporting my kids, um, physically, mentally, financially, all of that. I think as I get older and my kids get older, my focus has definitely not been about me trying to find a partner that would be great. Um, but ultimately, as my son's 20 and he's got 2 years left of this um, education program that he's currently in, is I want to make sure that both my kids, my son and my daughter, who's going to be a senior in high school next year, that their next steps towards adulthood are in a positive way. trying to set them up for success. And you know, if someone bumps into me and, that's great. But right now is everything is so focused on, my kids' success that that's kind of where I'm at. So
I mean, would you say, I think as special needs parents, I think when it comes to dating and relationships and considering like what it is nowadays and what it looks like, then I mean, because I was married for 10 years and dating 10 years ago versus now, it's a lot different. I mean, I've been divorced for 5 years. So if you kind of tack that on, that was like 15 years ago. And it definitely was easier back then, but I think as special needs parents is because we have, I want to say it's just, we're a lot more cautious. We're a lot more just in tune to who we bring into our kids' life and to make sure that they're not only going to be a good fit and it's not going to be a failed relationship, which I can totally agree with you there. I had one relationship post divorce, and sometimes people just, you know it just doesn't serve you, you know what I mean? So it's definitely difficult when you have special needs children, special needs, adults when they become adults and things like that, because I think it makes it a little bit more challenging,
mhm,
because not everybody is as accepting or willing to take that journey per se, right?
absolutely.
So yeah. So I think, it just makes it a little bit more difficult. And I think there's a lot of hesitation, um, because I know there's a moms group that I'm a part of, and there's a little bit of hesitation as far as, trying to jump back into that dating pool. And, most moms would love a relationship. However, if it's going to interfere with what you have built as far as the happiness, the peaceful home, the everything, might as well just keep the peaceful home, pretty
A
much,
thousand percent.
considering what it is.
I think that's the key thing, especially
Right.
us, one being divorced single parents, but then also with special needs, there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and there's a lot of background noise in our everyday life. And ultimately, when you want to add somebody to that, you want somebody is peaceful. And you don't want to have to deal with ups and downs in a relationship. And if there's any signs or red flags, your first reaction is, this is drama or this is noise. And we already have enough of that. So you want to add people into your life that are calm, that are adding to your happiness and joys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 1,000%. I can agree 1,000%. So the last question I'm going to ask you, I should have asked you this question first, but when you did get your son's
Mhm.
diagnosis, because I know when I got my daughter's diagnosis, it was, I mean, I thought the world was going to end. How did you feel, and how did you navigate and process those feelings?
Um, well, he was 3. We noticed that he wasn't hitting milestones early on, and maybe as early as 6 or 9 months. He didn't even really, he was one of those commando crawlers, couldn't get up on his knees. Basically his diagnosis comes down to is he's been developmentally delayed basically his whole life. That's the big thing, is everything has happened, but at a very slow rate. So that's kind of how we determined that there was something a little off, is the milestones. So we didn't necessarily know what we were dealing with. So we had to go do some genetic testing just to get an understanding what we were dealing with. And that was difficult to try to get whatever 10 vials of blood out of a 3-year-old, and that was difficult to hold them down. The kids crying, screaming, all this other stuff. But that just gave us some foundation piece. Now, it was difficult because you hear this, okay, 1p36 chromosome deletion, and without having an understanding of all that, and then you're, talking to other parents or the geneticist to kind of say, okay, here's what a Downs kid chromosomes look like just in comparison, and then with yours and things of that nature. But I guess the big thing for me, as far as how it affected me emotionally, I'm very realistic. So, yes, have brought my broken down in tears over things, but it definitely was not over a diagnosis. As I never considered my son's diagnosis a sad thing. This is who he is, and I've been very accepting of him and what the reality of the situation is from day one. And I just always wanted to know what I could do to improve it and get it better. And over the course of time, having that genetic diagnosis ultimately helped me process. I know in the special needs community, the word acceptance is huge. They use that accept is, what I try to convey to his mom or to anybody else is this is who he is. Okay. There's going to be obviously some development. There's been a lot of development over the 20 years compared to 5, 10, and 15, even to now. But ultimately, some of the same things that he has issues with now, he had it when he was 5 years old. But obviously, they're a little bit more bigger because he's 20 and not 5. But in some ways, he actually can calm down better now at 20 than he did at 5 because he didn't have the emotional capability. But he still can be impatient. He can still have some defiance disorder. He can still be super high energy. So it's all basically been the same over the course of 20 years, but just at different variable rates. But that's where when somebody says, okay, is there something you can fix or do? The answer is no. This is who he is, and this is always will be. And there is no magic pill, and there's no magic medicine for that. Now, meds can have a really important effect to kind of help balance to get them through their daily life at school and to process and focus. Um, but yet, there is no, when he is having a bad moment, a bad morning for 20 minutes, there's no pill that's going to make them stop. It's up to us as adults to know their triggers and to know what's going to help diffuse or calm down a situation. And I think that is such an important piece that us as adults have our roles as parents, and whether it's teachers or respite workers or anybody in the child's life, to understand them and realize their triggers and what it takes to calm them down and things of that nature. I mean, you take a typical, young kid, a 10-year-old, and you could say he's having a breakdown in a, supermarket. I probably did that as a kid. Okay, we didn't have tablets back then. Our parents just dragged us out of the supermarket. Now we can say, okay, kid, here's your tablet and things of that nature. So, how we grew up and now, but then you take a special needs child who could take even longer sometimes to calm down. It's it's understanding their nuances. So, to go back to your main question, how I dealt with it is I dealt with it as head on. I couldn't, accepted it, learned as much as I could about my son. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've had success and why most people, see my relationship with him is, we click. I understand him. I know what makes him tick. I know what annoys him. I know what makes him happy. And ultimately, that is what's made me to be the father I am, is that I embraced um, and accepted him for who he was from day one.
I think that's awesome. I think I have that type of relationship with my daughter, Sophia. And I can really relate to that. I know that as women, we're more emotional when it comes to hearing not so great news. And my ex husband kind of just dealt with it in his own way, per se. Um, I think I took more once I kind of got over the emotional piece. I kind of just took over and said, okay, well, how can we help her? What can we do? What kind of resources did we have? And I mean, when she was born in the state of Nevada, the resources they're far few in between. But now, that really has changed since I left there. But because there's now more resources to different things as far as autism and kids with different chromosome abnormalities and things like that. So I think as far as us moms, we take a more of an emotional piece, and it just feels like the whole world is ending because that's how I felt. So wow, this was excellent, Shawn. So, if we wanted to find you, how would we find you?
As far as just I'm on Facebook. Maybe if there's anybody that want to reach out to me, dads, moms, I'm open to discuss. I've been a really big part of the special needs community my whole life. I've coached in the Miracle League as far as baseball goes and things of that nature. Massage is generally word of mouth because UPS is my 90% job. So definitely referrals and things of that nature. But yeah, it's I would say probably just Facebook is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me and contact me, and I'm all for open discussions when it comes to parenting or special needs because there's a lot of help and we all need to support each other. So
All right. And I will go ahead and list everything down in the show notes. So if you're interested in asking Shawn any questions as far as special needs or parenting or just fatherhood in general, or you need a massage, Shawn is your guy. So thank you so much, Shawn, for joining me in this episode. This was great. I think this was a great segment as far as shedding light and bringing awareness when it comes to fatherhood.
thank you so much for having me.
All right. So make sure that you check out Shawn, and I will have everything in the show notes. And thank you for listening, everybody, to this episode. And I will chat with you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you have an interesting story that you would like to share on a future podcast episode, please send me an email at email@thecoparentingmama.com. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please click the link below and fill out the form. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, give a five-star review, as this helps reach more of you parents out there listening to this show. So thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time.